I've been in LA, I think very early on when I first went to work at LA, we were at an adult activity, meeting together, plotting a little conspiracy inside the adult activity of UPLA to take the committee over from the reactionaries who were running it. And last year, very involved with him and a lot of other ex-colleagues, a couple of others who were here trying to save adult education in Los Angeles. Crimes they committed against the people of the city to practically destroy it, but we did succeed in beating it back. So, I want to say a few words about being 66, actually. Wow! If you do the math, you'll realize I started doing during the time that I was 41. So a lot of people, just kind of rested their laurels at that point, but it's never been my interest, and I appreciate a lot of the testimonials. And I guess the most moving testimony I've ever got in my life, I got from black writers. They said to me, "Michael, you're the youngest elder we know," and but I remember those years. I have a perspective on life that's colored by being 66. I mean, that is a long, long time. And I'm aware of who is here and who's not here. Because I know a lot of people in the city over many, many years, and a lot of people who are not here who ought to be. And, those are people mainly from what sometimes known as the white left. There's some of my Occupy friends are here, and other anarchists I've known and worked with for a while, and some of my teacher colleagues are here, and some of the people I know from KPFK and particularly the Grassroots Community Radio Coalition are here. But I've been in Los Angeles since 1982, plugging away at trying to build solidarity, trying to build a self-critical consciousness about the impact of white supremacy on destroying movements and retarding movements from being what they could be, and waging that struggle inside coalitions with everybody under the sun. If you go by the table for trying to die Anti-racistaction back there, there's a box full of some of the back issues. I intended to illustrate this quick little talk with a bunch of the covers of 30 issues over 25 years or something, and that didn't work any technically, so it didn't happen. But there's a box full of back issues there, and over many, many years in the city, I've been in coalition after coalition after coalition. The Practice CA coalition, the End the U.S. War in the Middle East coalition, and many, many other coalitions. And in every one of those coalitions, I've struggled for the importance of transcending and overcoming the divisions among the different communities. And in the Practice CIA coalition, we went out to every corner of the city. And in doing some of the work I do with KPFK, we try to go out to every corner of the city. And in working in Occupy Los Angeles this past year or two, we tried to build the May 1st general strike of last year, and we put together the Four Winds effort of going to the east, the north, the south, the west. And here we have a little microcosm of some of that. But the predominantly white left in this city is not here tonight. And that's a reflection of the lack of integrity and the lack of self-criticism inside that movement that inhibits it from rising to the level and the task that is required of us at this time. I was at a poetry reading Wednesday night of the Revolutionary Poets Brigade. A couple of them are here, and Nancy D was here, and not going to start stuff again. I don't know if he's still here or not, but I explained to people there, and I explained here. A lot of people tell me Michael Novick way is one word. And there's a reason, there's a few reasons for that. It's like growing up, I grew up in Brooklyn. Somebody asked me earlier, how did I get to do this, or why do I do this? I'll tell you a little bit about my history because it's relevant. My father is from Poland. He came here as in the 30s as a teenager from Poland, so I am of immediate European descent. I understand that. viscerally what it means to be European descent. My father's European, my mother actually was born here, but all of her family was from Russia. And my father's father, my grandfather, who also did live here, got here. My grandfather was one of 15 kids, and the other 14 were all destroyed in Poland by the Nazis, and by the Poles, for that matter. They were from a town called Białystok, which had the second largest Jewish ghetto uprising after Warsaw, and they were all liquidated. And my parents were on the picket line on the Lower East Side when my mother joined the union and was fired for joining the union. So I come out of that history, and even so, I bought in very quickly to the idea that I was entitled to an education and all the goodies this society had to offer. I went to Brooklyn College, which when I went, it was a free 4-year public university. And I got involved in all kinds of struggles for anti-war, civil rights, student rights, free speech, to have student body elections for the student officers, and I was actually elected student body president. And in that process, I met a young Puerto Rican man who said to me, we were talking in the student council one day, he said, you know, they tried to teach me, he said, that George Washington is the father of my country, Puerto Rico. And I looked at him and I thought, well, they tried to teach me that too. And it was this epiphany, really, that why it makes no more sense that I should believe that George Washington is any kind of father to me than that he should. And in the process of that year or two of struggle at Brooklyn College, we had tremendous successes. We had 4,000 or 5,000 students shut the school down on a strike when SDS was just trying to pass out some literature against the Navy, and there were only 2 tables you could have on campus to pass the literature. The Navy had one and the fraternities had the other. The SDS set its own up, and the dean of students came out and expelled people from the school and then called the cops and beat people up and pulled them down by their hair. And we closed the school, got the dean of students fired. We put out a student evaluation, teacher handbooks. We did draft counseling. We had youth. We had a sit-in at the library when the state assembly cut the budget. And we had dozens of students from the day school staying over in the night school when the working class kids were coming to school. And then a big struggle emerged in the city of New York at that time around community control of education and open admissions to the city university system. And all of a sudden, this huge rift opened. And the teachers union in New York at that time took a tremendously racist stance against the black community. And at Brooklyn College, when we started to raise the question of open admissions in a school that was 98% white in Brooklyn. And even then, it's a long time ago, but even then, Brooklyn was more than 40% black and Puerto Rican. And there were no blacks. There were 25 blacks and 15 Puerto Ricans out of 10,000 students. But when we raised that struggle, after having all this success, suddenly, we had a sit-in at the registrar's office, and there was like a little united front of all the white left. It was like it was called Youth Against War and Fascism in the Workers' World. The WB Du Bois Club, the CPUSA, SDS, the Student Peace and some other groups. We had about 45 or 50 students sitting in the registrar's office demanding open admissions, and outside there were hundreds of students screaming for our blood. They were outraged at the idea that their diplomas, their degrees would be devalued if the school went to open admissions and black students from the campus. And they were freaked out that their brothers and sisters wouldn't have a place. Even though we demonstrated very clearly that there was plenty of room in the campus and nobody lose a position, so we would just expand the size of the student body, and we would have programs, etc., etc. The inbred racism of a white institution manifested itself with opposition to what was later termed affirmative action. So we were just talking about open admissions and black studies and ethnic studies and etc. And so the lifelong lesson for me at that moment was that if you're doing any kind of organizing about social change, revolutionary transformation, human rights, civil rights, student rights, anti-war, and you're not immediately, directly, and consciously addressing white supremacy and racism and the internalization and the institutionalization of racism, anything you're doing is built on a house of cards and it's going to collapse. Not even at repression, but just at raising demand that challenges people to think about how to change the society. And so that's the basis on which I've been doing work. As a person of European descent, as a working class person, as a trade unionist for whatever that was, 1968 to now, or 67. So that's a long time. Somebody asked me how I ended up in LA. I was sent here. I was a cadre of the Prairie Fire Organizing Committee, which was like the last gasp of the old new left. And I was in the Bay Area, I was in Chicago, I worked for the mayor, I was part of the General Anti-racistaction Committee. They sent me here. And the big struggle emerged about being here. I hated Los Angeles. I wanted to be here, like, last place on earth I wanted to be, honestly. And it took me a really long time. But 1982, the wars were raging in Central America. The New African People's Movement was here, Malcolm X grassroots movement. The MLN Mexicano was here. The Bloque Popular, the Sandinistas were here. The Salvadorans were here. The Ku Klux Klan was here. The first thing I did when I moved to LA was from Chicago was I drove somebody from Sylmar. I was living in Echo Park. I drove up to Sylmar, picked somebody up. I drove down to Long Beach for a demonstration against the Ku Klux Klan. We had the demonstration, and I drove them back to Sylmar, and I drove back to Echo Park. I said, fuck, if I was still living in Chicago, I could have been through 3 states by this time. I was driving like 3 hours and I never left LA. That's it. But I felt we had to be here for all those reasons. White supremacy was so intense here, and all the contradictions of imperialism here, and all the struggles. And so there was a struggle inside Prairie Fire. I took the position that we should stay here. We agreed to stay here, and then they sent somebody off. They sent me here. I said, this collective is not going to survive sending this person. And so I left Prairie Fire. Went in very shortly after they did leave. And so that's the point at which I started People Against Racist Terror. I had been part of the General Anti-racistaction Committee. They left. So that was 84, let's say, or 85. And I've been doing that since. And the essence of what I tried to do and all the work I've done over all this time is to say that the critical linchpin of doing any kind of political work is self-criticism, is addressing weaknesses and strengths simultaneously, that dialectic, and understanding how to use your strengths to overcome your weaknesses. And if you look at the figures of tremendous historical import from any struggle, if you look at Malcolm X, you look at Martin Luther King, they had tremendous self-criticism they were making. I mean, they were not, panty-waist about anything they were doing. They told it like it was to their own community. Martin Luther King said, if you're standing up, nobody can ride your back, And Malcolm, put out tremendous criticism to the black community. So if anybody in the white community, so-called, is not capable of doing that, then they have no claim to being, a progressive, let alone a revolutionary. So in this society, white supremacy is so critical and so central to why we're in the shape we're in. And at 66, I look at defeat after defeat after defeat after defeat. Honestly, Taco said earlier that the movements were smashed, and it's not just that they smashed them once and they're done. They smashed them and they smashed them, and every time somebody comes up, to the jail it's up, and they hit it again. And it's I I see the repression that black writers have faced and overcome, not once, not twice, 10, 15, 20 times, and they're here and they're strong and ever. That could be tremendous inspiration. And I'm sorry about So I basically want to leave people with a little bit of a challenge and a little bit of a sense of what the power of the people is, that power, that capacity to learn from our errors, from our mistakes. You know, people, humans are, that's our nature. We don't come into the world with a blueprint that tells us what to do. We're not instinctual beings, so we might have a couple of instinctive behaviors, but basically we have to raise our young and nurture them for a decade and a half or more to, you know, become capable, functioning adults. And so the nature of humanity is that we have to examine our errors and learn from them. We have to identify our strengths and use them to overcome our weaknesses. And we can, we have. There are, you know, I realize one of the things that has been a weakness of mine is that emphasizing the self-criticism I have neglected the other side of the dialectic of what is the power of the people, what is the strength of the people, what is the capacity of the people to resist. So the Intercommunal Solidarity Committee that a lot of people here tonight are already involved in, I would encourage you to get involved in, because that ability to build unity, to create the fist that cannot be broken, is a tremendous strength and capacity that we have. The attempt to overcome sectarian divisions, the attempt to overcome racism and white supremacy and communal violence and intercommunal violence. If you look at the example of the prisoners on hunger strike and on other strike, these are people living under conditions of fascism. There are debates about whether fascism is here or not, but George Jackson said many years ago, fascism is here already. Oh, yeah. And if you're looking inside the prisons and you're looking inside the nature of the society, and everybody knows the story about the lobster in the pot, you know, they raise the heat and the lobster never leaves the pot until he's boiled. So, you know, we're living in a society with the NDAA where everything that they did in COINTELPRO, where they smashed the Black Panther Party for self-defense and the Young Lords and the American Indian movement, then it was actually criminal when they did it, when the state did it, and they had to pardon the people. Ronald Reagan came in and pardoned all the FBI, you know, lawbreakers that did all those things. Today, it's all been legalized. And, you know, it's out in plain sight. It's the NDAA, it's the drones, it's the president claiming he can kill anybody who wants to. And the fact that the president has black skin is irrelevant, except to a lot of people on the white left who think that somehow they're being anti-racist by defending a black president.
Impeach!
Sick.
Impeach!
So the lesson is that if we are true to our own deepest understandings and our own humanity, we have the capacity to prevail over these people. All the power that they have, as Stephen Biko said, the greatest power in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. All the power they have is what they're extracting from the people they oppress. All the wealth that they have is what they're extracting from the people on the planet that they exploit. And they know that better than we do. They understand their vulnerability. They understand that because they are bloodsuckers, because they are parasites, that they have to constantly suck the life out of all of us.
That's right.
And all the power, all the creativity is that of the working people, the oppressed people, the colonized people, the poor people, who are creating all that wealth.
Yeah.
And so my message is that if we realize that, if we realize the humanity that we have, that we share, if we act on it, if we commit ourselves to it, you know, the newspaper is like a little thing in a certain way, but it's a consistent piece of political practice, and it's taken, you know, a third of a lifetime, let's say, to produce that. And that, you know, it's heart and soul, it's blood, sweat, and tears, and it's actually a wallet, you know, it's not a wallet. So I'm retired now, I don't have the income I had, and lo and behold, a dozen people have come forward for the first time in many, many years to say, yes, we want to keep this going, and then dozens and dozens of them turn up around, and I can't tell you how incredibly gratifying that is. All power to people. So thank you.
Almost everyone here tonight, and many people will probably still contribute, have written in this as a tribute and a gratitude offering to you for how much work you've put in the LA movement, and you have made a difference. And there are people who are here tonight who are going to continue.
Yes.
Continue.
Excellent prizes.
And then dance.
And then we're going to dance.
Their birthday. Underneath that bag.